Coming up today, comfort and companionship for children in the hospital, born out of the deep love between a mom and her son. Meet the duo behind Shadow Buddies. They know exactly what families need because they've been there. Good morning, I'm Alexis Del Cid. Welcome back to a special edition of All Things Heart and our Week of Love. A hospital stay can stress anyone out, let's be honest. But imagine what that's like for a child who might not even understand why they're sick or what's happening next. It can be frightening, but a little compassion and connection can change everything. So today we are sharing the second in our series of love stories. What began with a mother's deep love for her little boy who was in the hospital for quite some time is now spreading to thousands of children in hospitals around the world. And this love is rooted in empathy for those families. After watching her son endure 50+ surgeries, Marty Postlewaite knows what it's like to spend nights filled with worry and anxiety in the hospital. Marty joins us in the studio this morning alongside her son, Miles, who's all grown up, looking very handsome.
Thank you.
They are the co-founders of the Shadow Buddies Foundation. Shadow Buddies is a mission based on their very personal journey as a family. So great to have you both here. We're going to get to Shadow Buddies in just a moment. We're going to go deeper on that. We are also joined by cardiologist Dr. J.D. Surface. Dr. Surface is also the director of the Adult Congenital Heart Disease Clinic here at the University of Kansas Health System. Thank you for being so generous with your time. I know you have patients to treat. We will get you out on time to treat your patients today. So before we begin, let's talk a little bit more about Shadow Buddies. Here's Jill Chadwick to show us the story behind what Marty and Miles have endured.
We're all giddy about Gus.
Who doesn't love a great toy like Gus, a lab pet therapy dog?
He comes complete with his own little dog house here.
Or a gift that looks like the child who's about to receive it.
I will swap you. Perfect.
Oh, you guys are swapping the outfits?
Yes, to match skin tones.
Each detail holds meaning, from the heart-shaped eyes for love and a smile,
This is for a little boy.
to the research on this sheepskin preemie that shows something magical happens to fussy newborns when parents follow special directions for the layette.
Place my gown close to your heart and tuck it in tight. I will stay with your new baby and comfort them in life's fight.
Our studies showed that the children's anxiety, their heart rate, everything came down so that they were more comfortable knowing that, this had the scent of their mom or their dad.
These are all part of the big family of Shadow Buddies, 38 and counting, uniquely designed to bring comfort and more.
They're perfect for doing medical play with patients. We can do rehearsal with maybe a sedation mask before surgery or work through maybe a procedure that they've already had.
Such play makes the tiniest of patients feel safer,
Hi, Miss Harley. How are you?
calmer, even when meeting strangers while not feeling their best.
Can I hand your little buddy to you?
In a split second,
There you go, sweetheart.
their buddy becomes a best friend.
Here's Gus. Here's your new little puppy. And he's your friend. What do you think?
More than 2 million Shadow Buddies have gone to people in need in 178 hospitals in all 50 states and 20 countries. And today, to children in the pediatric unit at the University of Kansas Health System.
We love helping kids and mom and dads.
And it shows. What's even more amazing is all this love started with a simple wish of a 6-year-old boy, Marty's son, born 37 years ago. Miles was born prematurely. Over time, he underwent multiple surgeries and procedures to treat a complicated heart condition. By age 6, feeling much different from his friends, he made a simple wish to his mom.
I just wish I had a friend that was like me.
That wish hit Marty hard.
You hurt, you don't know what to do, you don't know how to take that pain away from your child.
Inspired by Miles' wish, And despite her self-proclaimed lack of craftiness, Marty created the first Shadow Buddy, which didn't physically last very long.
Yeah, my dog ate it.
Undeterred, Mom made another, just in time for a hospital trip out of state.
Trip I took it on was to New York when I had surgery in New York, and it is a comforting tool. Even at 37, I mean, to know that there's a Shadow Buddy out there that has a condition-specific illness like you do, I mean, it still hits home.
Shadow Buddy started out with 4 and quickly expanded.
We just kind of grew out of demand and out of the need. Once we took it to New York and they said, oh my gosh, there's so many other teaching tools, but none that are soft and cuddly, none that kids get to take them home once they bond with them.
A tiny wish that grew so big, Shadow Buddies found the child in all of us, especially during the pandemic.
The first thing we knew that comfort had no age limit.
Shadow Buddies expanded to include the courageous crew, policemen, the first responders, the firemen, the nurses, and physicians. Frontline workers spending so much time away from home. These Shadow Buddies from Mom or Dad help remind children and loved ones they were not forgotten.
Seniors in nursing homes, our oldest recipient was 104.
Each Shadow Buddy fulfills a simple wish Miles made as a boy, and each carries a tiny piece of him, his 6-year-old thumbprint that has become the registered trademark of a true Shadow Buddy. Mom only needed one, but
We did 60 of them, and he was like a little irritated, I think.
A little?
So I said, okay, 60 is perfect to work with.
I was a 6-year-old sitting there for like an hour and a half doing thumbprints.
Oh, the things they remember.
Of all the things you remember about your experience, the thumbprints, that's what sticks, right?
Yeah, picking the first one after sitting there for an hour and a half, that was an adventure.
Very patient little boy. You have been through so much as a child. My goodness, Marty, and we're also going to ask you this, Miles. Often, though, all the time, these congenital heart defects begin with a mom getting this diagnosis that you didn't expect. Take us back to when Miles was born and you learned there was a problem with his heart.
Yes, I think for a lot of moms or families that go through having a premature baby, oftentimes you're separated because obviously he was born at one hospital and then was life-flighted over to the University of Columbia, Missouri at the time where we lived. And so not being able to meet him for 7 days was a hard thing for me as well. But you know, I remember walking in and looking at this little baby and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you know, that can't be mine. And blessed and thank goodness that he was. But, you know, he had other anomalies when he was born. He had severe intestinal disorders, and so that was our first clue. And then obviously when you're in a NICU and you're checking out a premature baby, you know, then we were told, you know, he has ASD and VSD. This was all strange lingo to me.
Yeah, what's ASD and VSD?
Yeah, and so, but then they came back with the diagnosis of tetralogy FLO, which then, you know, you throw yourself into trying to learn as much as you can because then, you know, they're talking about, you know, whether or not to have a closed heart where they would have to go in and because his blood, you know, he was a blue baby is what they called him, a blue tet.
Oh, wow.
So just lots of things that you have to learn, and it is very scary and very frightening. And you know, he has 2 older sisters, so, you know, it becomes a whole family affair because we just wanted to embrace ourselves and learn more about what we could do to hopefully, you know, have Miles have a great outcome with his life.
And what is ASD and VSD?
So ASD was atrial septal defect, and then a VSD is ventricular, correct? And so then I think tetralogy, as we learned, then all 4 chambers of your heart are have a defect. So I know a lot a different lingo. I'm not quite the expert.
You become one, sort of a quasi-expert, right?
And you do. So I was kind of giggling, and when I talk to people, is that I think as new parents that, you know, having 2 healthy daughters and then having a child that has severe congenital birth defects and being a preemie, it was probably good I didn't know a whole lot back then because I would be a lot harder probably to work with now because it is such a frightening situation to go through. And, you know, then you start wondering, what have we done as parents or something that we did, or was there family history? And amazingly, we could not trace anything back to our family with a heart defect, so I guess just out of the blue, Miles had one. I mean, I'm not sure.
Just
so.
the way it shook out somehow. Lucky Miles, right?
Yeah.
But because of Miles, we have this incredible gift that's now helping millions of children in the hospital, which is so beautiful that you've turned this into such a mission. And Dr. Surface, you specialize in treating adult patients who were born with congenital heart problems. Tetralogy of Fallot, as we were talking about, as Marty said, tetra means 4. So how rare is tetralogy of Fallot, and how would you explain it to a patient whose child is diagnosed with it?
Sure. So to answer the first question, tetralogy of Fallot is rare in the sense that all congenital heart disease is rare. So less than 1 in 100 people are born with a congenital heart defect. Tetralogy, though, is one of the more common complex congenital heart defects. And so it, for example, is one of the most common diagnoses that I see in my clinic. It comes in a lot of different forms, but at the end of the day, it was named Tetralogy of Fallot because this fella named Fallot had seen a lot of hearts that all looked the same way or very similarly, and he noticed these 4 things that you see up on the screen. One is a VSD, which is that hole between the 2 bottom chambers of the heart. One is pulmonic stenosis, which means that blood getting out to the lungs from the right side is having a hard time because there's some narrowing there. One's called an overriding aorta. We don't need to worry about that. And then right ventricular hypertrophy just means that the muscle of the right ventricle is thickened, which is common when there's obstruction to flow because it's just having to beat harder to get blood out. And that's what you start with, but obviously that's not what your heart looks like right now. This typically does need to be corrected relatively early in life, although you will occasionally see people who are diagnosed late in childhood or adolescence or even adulthood and get very late repairs. That happens less and less now. And nowadays we're dealing with a lot of the sort of post-surgical long-term follow-up issues.
Which is where you really come in for these families, which is such a relief for people like Marty, parents like Marty and Miles, to know there's an expert here who you treat tetralogy of Fallot quite frequently. When it comes to treating it, Miles, you've had more than 50 surgeries. By what age had you had 50 already?
Well, first 29 were very early. Like by the time I was 7 or 8, that's where the first 29. And then after that, we actually traveled quite a bit for the rest of my surgeries between New York, Cincinnati, Chicago, LA. So, I mean, I think that I can't tell you when the 50 happened, probably 17, 18. So, yeah, a lot of them were early on in my life. And then as technology got better and the repairs got better, it was less and less.
And some people go their whole life without a surgery,
right?
Let alone 50 before you're 17. Marty, as a mom, one thing that just stuck out to me is you describing your little baby having to be life-flighted without you. So you give birth to this beautiful baby boy you've been waiting for, and they have to put him on a plane and fly him to another hospital without you.
Transported,
Oh my
across
gosh.
town in Columbia. His dad, my parents lived here at the time, and both of our families drove in. So, to me, I wasn't the priority. I wanted my family to leave and go with him. Which was, very blessed that he was able to have people there with him. So obviously, Emmett doesn't remember, but I think as a parent, and that's what's most comforting, and would get updates from the NICU in Missouri, and many times we didn't know if we were going to wake up and still have him. So you just take it a day at a time. I think that's my best advice, or that I tell people when I visit them, is that we were told so often in the beginning that, and obviously I appreciate the fact that they were honest, but I think then as a parent you learn to just take it a day at a time, because if you put all that stress on you to worry about what's going to happen a week from now, it sure makes it a long day. So I think to be able to have that, it took a long time to get that wisdom, but I think that's kind of what got us through, and the fact that we did have family. So,
Miles, what's your earliest memory of your hospital experience?
The smell.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never forget the smell. I mean, even to this day, walking in and, you walk into an operating room, even when my daughter just had her tonsils taken out, and you walk back there and you just, that smell never goes away.
Give you anxiety? Does it give you the heebie-jeebies?
It used to very bad. I mean, handle it now. I mean, but it takes you back. I mean, I remember, especially at Children's Mercy, I remember what the room looks like when you wait to go be taken back. I remember being wheeled back, and the one reason that the thumbprint is the trademark is because most of the time coming out of surgery, didn't really talk a lot, and so that was my sign to my mom and dad that I was good, was thumbs up to them. So, yeah, I mean, like she was just mentioning family. I remember always having family members there. I was never alone, and that's one thing like about the Shadow Buddies that is great, is because traveling, having surgery, so many kids are there alone.
Yeah.
So that's why the Shadow Buddy is good for comfort. So, yeah, memories, I mean, of actual surgeries, I mean, with all the anesthesia, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I don't remember, obviously, but I mean, I just remember how it was like going back to the operating room, getting out, and just having family there.
Some of your core memories, though, are hospital.
Yeah, and I don't like
stays.
Jello. I had way too much Jello, so if I smell Jello, I can't be
Gross.
around it. Yep.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yep.
At what age do you remember understanding that you were on a completely different journey than other children your age?
Yeah.
Or was there a point when you remember thinking, wait a second, none of my other friends have this?
Yep. 6, 7. I mean, I was part of a heart panel, whatever, we used to have a heart camp, and I got asked a question, what is it like not to be like normal? Well, the problem is that was my normal life. I mean, that's all I knew. So, I mean, that's one thing that I hope those kids understand, like, that can be your normal. So, I mean, I think to answer that question, when my kids started, my friends started playing football. I couldn't play football because I couldn't, get hit in the chest. And football's my favorite sport, but I couldn't play football. Running around, I couldn't run as long as the other kids. So, I knew there was something different, but like as far as like all the procedures, that was just my normal. So, I really didn't think about it until probably getting older about it, or when I got older I thought about it, but in the beginning, that's all I really knew.
That's interesting that you say around 6 or 7, because 6 is when you also asked for something to give you comfort, someone that looked like you, or a friend or a buddy, and that's when your mom created Shadow Buddies. What was it like when you got that first Shadow Buddy? Do you remember?
Yeah, my dog ate it.
That's right. So how do you dog-proof those? Because I think that would be impossible.
Oh no, I think there's probably a few dogs that have found cute little comfort toys, especially a hunting dog by Cody.
Yeah.
Oh, Cody ate the dog.
It smelled like you. It smelled like you. He wanted it. What compelled you then to take this idea, Marty, that was originally just for your little boy, and expand it into something global?
So I think for me, if you back up to the very beginning, when he wished for a friend like him, we lived at Children's Mercy for 5 years. We literally lived on 2 South. Between all of his, he's had multiple colostomies and has had pseudo-obstruction, has, all these intestinal things, kidneys. So I actually went to work for Children's Mercy. I went back to school, became a medical transcriber, went back, and I was the full-time operating room scheduler for 6 years until it got too close to my heart. At the time, he was looking at potentially going to Omaha for an intestinal transplant because everything in his little gut was just dying, and every time we resected or removed the part that was not good, it would just continue to happen. So I think what really helped me put a picture to it was, I call it the olden days, is that, now you can take your child back to the operating room and sit with them while they, go to sleep, and a gentle sedation, or they have other means. Back in the olden days, the OR nurse came to the door in the waiting room and peeled those babies out of your arms. And so parents, then could not go back there. So I watched these children for 5 years go back and forth, and I thought, gosh, had I probably not had that opportunity to see and experience day in and day out, because I would pull him to work with me in a wagon, and then the nurses would come and get him, do his treatments, and I would just go back to 2 South and be there until work the next day. But that really put a picture, to me of how that would comfort him, because so oftentimes, the same thing happened to us. So giving these child a buddy, or to create something that became a friend like them, a companion that they could take back and forth to treatment, just was, it was just right in front of me, and listening to a 6-year-old little boy was just, out of the mouth of babes, I think is what they say.
Sure.
So just great that I was able to do that. And like the Peace Show, I know nothing about crafts, I will tell you. I probably was the worst mom in the world.
Yeah.
We did not do Play-Doh, was not allowed in my house. Don't ask me why. But I just...
You had your hands full.
I had my hands
3
full.
kids.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
let's be a little gentle on yourself.
Okay,
It's okay that you didn't have Play-Doh in the house.
Yeah. So you know what? It was a beautiful thing that happened, and I remember for 5 years that I always, first when I met him, I'd made a pact with myself and with my God that said, Mike, just can I have him for a little bit? I don't want to be selfish. If you find another path that, whatever. But the older he got, the more selfish I became, because obviously as a parent, you want that relationship, and you want your, you don't want anything to happen to your child. So I always told myself, I will, if I ever get to an opportunity that I can give back, because we've walked those shoes, I would do my best to try to help make it better for other parents. And so I think that is obviously our mission and our goal. Is it's not, you have to love charity work to do, because you're always begging and asking people for help. So it doesn't take a weak person to do that, because I'm in it for the love. I'm not in it for anything other than that.
Boy, talk about a love story. That is, everything you've said is so beautiful and will resonate with so many parents watching. Dr. Surface, you work closely with Children's Mercy Hospital when it comes to transitioning children with heart defects into adult care, which is your care. Can you speak to how these shadow buddies are used to help explain to the little ones what's about to happen? Because you do a great job of explaining to your adult patients what's happening. It must be pretty powerful for a patient to be able to understand the procedure they're about to undergo and understand what's happening in their body.
Yeah,
And that's what shadow buddies do.
It's, I've only recently learned about shadow buddies, and what an incredible thing that it is that you have done. I think it's so neat that you've reached the lives of so many children and families, but then it sounds like during the pandemic, it really broadened the scope of such an incredible enterprise. But it does remind me of a story that I think is probably illustrative of how these might be very helpful. I worked with a congenital heart surgeon during training, and he actually made local news because he had a patient, a young girl who needed surgery, and she was understandably nervous about it, and he actually, at her request, performed the surgery on her little doll. And so, made an incision and then sewed up the chest, in the chest wall. And I think that provided the child a lot of comfort. The same thing, there's someone else like me who's gone through something else, and it's my close little buddy. So I just think that's incredible work. So thank you for doing that.
No, we're super happy that our buddies are used here in pediatrics, and obviously we would love to donate some heart buddies to your department and try to, whether they're older or younger, or sometimes even your Miles's age or younger that have small children. A lot of times it's a comfort for them, because then they can better understand what mom and dad are going through, or grandma and grandpa are going through, and anything that provides that tangible item that can just help reduce that stress and provide compassion and dispel rumors about, I remember when he would grow up and he would tell his friends, or to me, I have a big scar, down my chest and my heart, and to him, I'm sure smaller kids, they feel like that's massive. They feel like it's big. So, that's a lot for kids to have to overcome, and I think that, my grandfather had colon cancer and had a colostomy, and I know for years, they never shared any of that information. And then when I was told Miles was going to end up having a colostomy, I was like, oh my gosh, it must be terrible, because my grandparents never wanted to share, but that's probably also their generation.
Right.
When he came out of surgery and I went upstairs and they took off the little 4x4, I sat there and looked at my husband and I said, "Oh my God, that's it." I mean, I was expecting like this, big red thing or whatever to be hanging off at the side.
Your mind is a scarier place than reality, 90% of the time.
And I think that's, obviously the buddy is not exactly, and a lot of kids go through a lot more traumatic situations, but the theory is that, you've got somebody, a little friend that's going through something, mimics your condition. So it does really, psychosocial, it just really helps with the process of dealing with going through something different.
Our viewers watching at home are bound to have questions. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like to share with us, you can send it to us on YouTube, Facebook, or the All Things Heart email. All the links and how you can connect with us in real time are right there on your screen. Dr. Surface, about tetralogy of Fallot, what kind of specialty care does someone need throughout the years when they're born with tetralogy of Fallot?
Sure. So, in childhood, there are going to be better experts than me to talk about this, but most of it's about surgery. Obviously, Miles, you had what sounds like complicated issues that went beyond your heart.
Yeah.
And tetralogy of Fallot, just with the heart, comes with a variety of a spectrum of severities. And some people have one surgery and they're done, and some people have numerous surgery after surgery after surgery, and catheter-based interventions and the like. But as you grow, as you've experienced, typically those interventions become less and less frequent, but they don't go away.
Yeah.
And as you become an adult, the needs start to shift, and the needs of an adult with tetralogy of Fallot is different than the needs of a child with tetralogy of Fallot. But they're also different from, an adult with more conventional types of heart disease. And that's why you need folks like me who take care of adults with congenital heart disease. And you shared with me, I hope you don't mind me saying this out loud, that you have a prosthetic valve.
Yeah, pulmonary.
Yeah, so those are the types of things that we need to look out for and look at over the years and make sure that if and when the time comes that needs to be replaced, that we replace it at the right time and in the right way.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing.
Yep.
Miles, do you have any limitations or anything you can't do today because of what you were born with?
It's kind of like the same when I was younger. Exercising, I get tired real easy.
You don't want to be tackled.
Don't want to be tackled.
Right.
But he's a great golfer.
Nice.
Depends on the day.
You're a great dad. I bet it was such a comfort to your daughter going in to have her tonsils out that she had you to ask about anxiety.
She's yes and no. She's she sees the scars and she just she tries to put Band-Aids on them. So
That's cute.
No, as far as limitations, no, not a heck of a lot. I've had great surgeons and cardiologists throughout the years. Last time I was here with Dr. Mulhern, my wife asked a question we were told 7 to 10 years have to be replaced. Why hasn't it came up? She's very outspoken when it comes to that, and he just made the comment. He goes, "I do not like when cardiologists or surgeons put a time limit on it because this could last you forever."
Right.
And last time I had a checkup, they said it was strong as ever, looked better than a real valve. So I'm actually going to go see Dr. Service here in about 2 weeks. So
Beautiful.
we'll get a look at it.
Yeah, he's a little overdue, I must say, as a mom. A little overdue.
That's going to change.
You know what? It's all going to change.
Right.
So.
We have Angie Racono standing by with some of the questions and comments coming in from our viewers. Good morning, Angie.
Hey, good morning. This is so awesome. What a great concept. Stu wants to know who makes the shadow buddies and how are they made?
So we contract out a manufacturing plant in Nepal. So they're all made by women who we gave the trade to sew and to help support their families. But then the clothing, we have 70 volunteers at all times that help us with the shorts and the skirts and the little t-shirts. So a lot of loving hands go into what we do, but the actual buddies are produced in Nepal, and then we with 40 different conditions and 3 different skin tones. It's a little bit of a process.
Cool.
But so yeah, we loving hands make them.
I love that.
That's great. And then we have another question from Amy. A congenital heart defect is a pre-existing condition. Does that make insurance difficult?
Ooh.
Yes.
Good question.
Yes, as a mom. So when Miles was first born, back then they had limits on your health policies. So we maxed out 2 policies at $1 million each. Blessed that his dad worked for an amazing company that was very gracious and grateful to help us make sure that Miles had some of the best care. But moving forward now, until he was 26, he was on our policy. Very expensive, and so you have to learn to kind of jump through some loopholes and make sure that stuff is done. They come back before when he was on digoxin and with his ostomy supplies, the insurance company wanted to put a limit on that amount. But again, you just have to be the voice of your child. You have to raise a little bit of cane once in a while.
Absolutely.
And then we got in with some amazing physicians and people at whether Children's Mercy, KU here, in Chicago, Children's Hospital, they become your great advocates. So, as a parent, learn to engage with your physician and learn as much as you can, because they come back to be your best allies.
Angie, you have one more question?
Yes, I do. Let me find this for you. It's for Marty. And this is one asking about, when did you realize the turning point, when it stopped being panic about your new baby being in jeopardy to being like, okay, I feel like we've got this?
That's a great question.
So
it's a personal question.
No, Miles probably doesn't remember a lot about these conversations. And again, I think it was when the physicians for the first 5 years, we thought the first birthday was going to come and go, and being honest, and then the second and third, and then Miles one day when he was 5 had asked me, when I go to heaven, will there be lots of food? And I said, oh my gosh, yes, as I'm trying not to run off the road, a big feast, and just trying, because kids sometimes ask the darndest questions. But I think after that, and he was being treated, and I went there and had a great social worker that came around, and I said, oh my gosh, I said, I think something's wrong with me, because I worry about this every day. What happens when or if this time comes? She said, you're not crazy. She said, if parents didn't think, good parents, and all parents, didn't think about these questions, you would not be normal, because that's just your normal gut reaction. And then I think it was then that I decided, so probably 5 or 6, because I had wasted so much time worrying about that. And then I thought, this is totally out of my hands. And so trying to have a different perspective, and the fact that, he had so many great friends. Even the friends from kindergarten are still his best friends. Starting Shadow Buddies, we've met some amazing athletes, and disclosed that Tony Gonzalez is his big brother. And it was finally Tony that I think one day gave him the confidence. We were at a Pro Bowl, I'm gonna brag a little bit, that we got to do some fun things. And we were all on the beach, and he would never take his shirt off, because he has all these scars. I mean, he looks like a little railroad track. And Tony's like, dude, we don't care. Own it. We love you for who you are.
Oh, wow.
So, that day forward, I think Miles has finally realized that it's okay that he's different, and people aren't going to judge him. So I know that was a long answer, but how about the age of 5 or 6? So, but I think it's because we have so many good people that have surrounded us.
Was not expecting the Tony Gonzalez angle.
I know.
No.
That's kind of fun to throw that out there once in a while. So
wow, that's incredible. We have to wrap up this discussion. I would love some final thoughts from all of our guests. Dr. Surface, what would be your message to parents watching who have a child that was born with a congenital heart defect?
I think my first message would be that it's going to be okay. And obviously every patient is different, but nowadays, well over 95% of all children born with congenital heart defects not just survive, but thrive into adulthood. And that's really our goal, is not just to get you there, but to help you really thrive and live, the fullest life that you can. And medical care has come so long in the congenital heart disease space in such a relatively short time span that diagnoses that previously would have been uniformly fatal in childhood are now well treated and managed into adulthood. But they do have to be managed carefully, lifelong. And that's it's just worth mentioning because it is Congenital Heart Disease Awareness Week. And so I just want everyone to know there's a lot of folks with congenital heart disease out there who are surviving and thriving just like Miles.
Miles, what would you like our viewers to know?
I guess that for like parents and children who have the congenital heart defect, that it is normal. That there's nothing different than any other child who's able to go run and play and do all those sorts of things. You're still normal.
I mean, look at you,
Yeah.
thriving.
Well,
Yeah.
You're a dad, living
I
a great
am.
life. You nod like you're getting kind of beat up at home. Huh?
No.
Those kids will really knock you down a few pegs.
All girls.
all
Oh boy, those can be the
Yeah,
most
all
brutal.
girls.
Yes, speaking from experience.
Yeah.
Marty, what is next for Shadow Buddies? Because this is continuing to skyrocket.
It is. Gosh, so this year we're celebrating 30 years. I haven't been gainfully employed for 30 years before. Such an honor to do this. In a couple weeks, we're going to be boots on the ground up with the LA County Fire Department, servicing and helping the fire department and first responders for all the families that have been displaced in the wildfires. We're going to work with the chaplain and to provide a little bit of comfort and compassion. I mean, we're not going with a bunch of dollars that we can, help these families, but we're going with that compassionate piece and letting the firemen hand out these buddies to the families. So,
That's so
lots of great
nice.
things. We design and create new buddies, a new buddy each year. So lots of good things in the works, but just very honored to be able to help support so many families in our community and looking forward to making a donation to your clinic, because that's what we would love to do.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for joining
Thank
our
you.
program.
Thank you for
and
having us.
Yes, thank you.
Miles, thank you for being so honest and open about your journey as well. And Dr. Surface, we love you. Thank you for taking time to come on and help us educate everybody on this important topic. And we'd love to keep tabs on what happens when you go out to California with those
Yes,
Shadow Buddies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining our conversation. And if you'd like to watch or share any one of our previous episodes, there's a QR code on your screen right now. Just scan it. It will take you to links of all our previous shows. Have a great day.